The biggest challenge is Zoom traffic.
Yeah.
In what sense? What do you mean?
The time it takes people to log on.
Oh.
Okay, emit all. Welcome everyone. We'll get started in a few minutes. We're just waiting for the mayoral candidate to join us. Thank you for your patience and for your flexibility. We originally had this scheduled at AIA and needed to shift over to Zoom format. We will get started as soon as the candidate arrives. We're sort of on a condensed timeline. We've been informed that the mayoral candidate only has about a half an hour with us this morning. This evening. We have been scheduling these for 2 hours because we do have quite a dense agenda, but you will get a shortened version today. Oh, Rick is here now. We see Mr. CARUSO. I believe your name is on the co-host. Mr. CARUSO, are you on the call?
Well, it looks like the audio is still connecting for him.
Okay. So we appreciate everyone's flexibility and patience. We had about 100 RSVPs for this to be an in-person event at AIA. And now that we're on Zoom, we'll get started rather quickly as soon as we hear from Mr. CARUSO. While we're waiting for Mr. CARUSO, I just want to say that we truly are grateful for the leadership of our president, Mitra Mamari, who's been helping us with these forums, and also our moderator and AIA board member, Francis Anton. This is our 7th in a series of mayoral candidate forums. So far, we've featured 9 of the leading mayoral candidates. And as I mentioned, as soon as we hear from Mr. CARUSO's team, we will get the program started. Thank you for your patience. Mr. Altoon, it's a pleasure to have you on the call. We could all enjoy watching your bookshelf grow in volume.
You know,
And wonder what he's snacking on.
I had an early dinner, so this is my dessert. It's kind of like trail mix.
Mhm.
Be some technical challenge here, but we will, I'm sure we'll overcome it soon. So while we're waiting, we just encourage everyone to keep themselves on mute. We are under a condensed timeline tonight, and as soon as we hear from the mayoral candidate, we'll put here. It looks like we're getting sound now. There
Hi.
you are. Excellent. Mr. Caruso, welcome. My name is Will Wright. I work for AIA Los Angeles, and it's a pleasure to have you here. We're going to introduce Mitra Mamari, the president of AIA Los Angeles.
Well,
Mitra.
thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Hi, everybody. As president of AIA Los Angeles and partner at ZGF Architects, I'm pleased to welcome you to the last of our series of forums with the leading Los Angeles mayoral candidates. Tonight, we are delighted to have an opportunity to further connect with Rick Caruso and to learn more about his priorities as a mayoral candidate for Los Angeles. My fellow board member, Francis Anderton, honorary AIA LA, and a longtime design and architecture journalist will serve as our moderator tonight. Francis, handing it off to you.
Well, thank you so much, Mitra, and it's great to see you on the screen there, Mr. Caruso. Just to start with, may I call you Rick?
Yes, you can. I was just going to say, please do that.
Good, good, good. So just very briefly, I'll just summarize your bio, and then we'll launch into some questions. We have somewhat of a condensed schedule now, so
Yeah, I'm
if
sorry
you have,
about that. I apologize, but thank you for understanding.
we do apologize. We do understand, although we can't believe there can be more interesting people than architects to go and
I
talk
love
to.
architects. I spend my life with architects. You kidding me?
Well, you do, and I'm most intrigued to learn more about that. But let's start off with some of the, I guess, really important questions that have to do with why you've taken on this challenge. Let's quickly say, for anyone who might not be familiar with your bio, you're a very successful businessman, real estate developer. Your properties include the Grove, Americana at Brand, and Palisades Village. You've served as president of the LA Police Commission. You've served on the LA Department of Water and Power and Coliseum Commissions. You were chairman of the USC Board of Trustees, but stepped down after announcing your candidacy. You and your wife, Tina, are philanthropists. You've donated over 130 million to various charitable causes. You're big givers to your faith community, which includes St. Monica's Church in Santa Monica, where you supported a large expansion of its facilities. You've been described as a Reagan Republican, but you recently joined the Democratic Party. You've spent generously on this race, around 10 million is one of the estimates, and you're now running neck and neck with Karen Bass. So you're standing a very good chance of becoming the future mayor. And one thing that I'd certainly like to know is, given the position that you have at the top of your business and real estate empire, is why seek the job of the mayor? In the position that you have, everyone answers to you. In the position that you're seeking, you're going to have to make deals. You're going to have to build alliances. You're facing a weak mayor structure. There's a lot of negotiation. There's city councillors, multiple stakeholders. It's a very different kind of job. Why do you want it?
Well, thank you for having me here, and thank you for the question. And it's a great question. First of all, I want to do it because I have public service in my blood, and I have served this city from a public service standpoint since I was 26. I was first appointed on a commission by Tom Bradley at DWP, the largest public utility in the country. I also served under Dick Reardon, and then I also served under Jim Hahn as the police commissioner, and took over, a very complicated police department that was under a lot of stress after the Rodney King beating, and reformed it, brought in new leadership, turned around the crime situation in the city. So public service is in my blood. I've done it before. And I want to do it now because I love the city. I've raised my family here in the city. My 4 kids and my wife all love the city. We've built my business. I started with 1 employee. And yes, I've been blessed and very successful and have a great team to do this. But let me tell you, and all of you know, being architects in the development business, and certainly in Los Angeles, where development is very complicated, you have to form alliances. You have to have a level of leadership that gets people excited about what you're proposing. You have to listen. You have to reach across the table and across the aisle. And you have to get people to support what you want to do. Every project I have built is incredibly complicated. They are all in infill locations. If you know the Grove, if you know the Miramar up in Montecito on the beach, try building a resort on the beach in the state of California. We are literally on the sand. Our rooms open out onto the sand. And every project we've done has been very successful, but we've done it because we know how, I know how to build coalitions, and I will do that as mayor. I think my training is perfect to be a chief executive of the city, because the mayor's office is a chief executive position. It's not a legislative position. And I know how to do that. I'm comfortable with doing that, and I'm excited about doing it.
There are a lot of fiefdoms, including city councillors. Do you feel that you're ready to, I mean, we have a sort of tradition in LA of the councillors getting to do the developments they want, and there's a complex relationship there. Do you feel you're ready to build those alliances with the councillors?
Well, of course I am. First of all, I know all of them. Second of all, they know me. And third of all, you know, every project that I've built, I've had unanimous votes at the city council. Pacific Palisades is probably the most difficult area of Los Angeles to build a project. We built it without an EIR, with a mitigated negative deck. Some of it was historic that we were able to either move or take down. And I had a unanimous vote at city council and not one lawsuit from the community. So you want to talk about the ability to build coalitions. I think that's unheard of. We built Miramar on the beach without even going to the California Coastal Commission. It was approved at the staff level, and the commission just stamped it because we had no opposition from the community or Santa Barbara County. So listen, it takes a lot of time, a lot of art, a lot of skill, a lot of hard work, takes some compromise, and it also takes allowing other people to be the heroes. And I'm prepared to do that with the city council. I think they are looking to do the right thing. And I think they desperately need somebody that will help lead them and support them along the way.
Okay, so the biggest problem in Los Angeles that a lot of people are feeling fairly desperate about is the scale of the homelessness problem. And you're definitely running on that. You're arguing that you've got some answers that so far the others who've tried have not. You've sharply criticized the high cost and slow delivery of Measure HHH projects. There's a whole bunch of factors that are causing those things, from piles of regulations to neighborhood resistance to projects. What can you do differently?
Well, you need to unbundle all the overregulation that we have in the city of Los Angeles right now. Again, all of you are working with clients that have to be frustrated with projects going through the city of Los Angeles, or are choosing not even to build in the city of Los Angeles. It's so overregulated, and it's so discretionary, and it takes so long. We've turned into a city that disincentivizes investment in our city. And on top of it, you look at HHH at $800,000 a unit. I was with a group this morning that's doing Section 8 housing, and they're building modular units that are stackable up to 5 stories at an average of $250,000 a unit. So I think we all know government is never good at delivering things in a cost-effective manner. But I want to stop HHH. I want to do an accounting on it, do an audit, find out where the waste is before we start spending the $1.5 billion that all of us in Los Angeles agreed to be taxed on. And wasting taxpayer dollars is not at the top of my list. I want to stop that. So it can be done more efficiently for sure.
So are you saying that in an ideal Rick Caruso world, you would take the housing construction out of government charge. You would put it into the private sector, because that's what some of those modular solutions are endeavoring to do, is find ways of circumventing at least some of the limitations on these projects, including construction costs, including various regulations. Is that what you'd rather see?
Well, what I'd rather see is not wasting taxpayer dollars. So if we can do it through Triple H and do it competitively, great. But I want to incentivize everybody, nonprofits and profits, to come into the city and invest in low-income housing, middle-income housing, in every form of housing. We're 500,000 units short. And so we've got to create incentives to come in and invest in LA.
And yet, what really at both the scale of temporary shelters and at the level of more permanent housing, both at the affordable level and even the market rate level, just a small number of units so often meets with such pushback from neighborhoods. You've just described some projects you worked on where you said you didn't have to handle any lawsuits, that you didn't get pushback. I'd love to know what your secret sauce is, because it seems extremely difficult to get any project past community groups across Los Angeles. And the number of years now that architects estimate a relatively small, affordable and nonprofit affordable housing development takes to get built is 8 years.
Well, that's a really scary estimate. I'm not denying it. I'm not, obviously things that I don't know. I've never heard that period of time. But even if it's 2 years or 3 years, it's too long. And we have to have projects that are important for the city, like low-income housing, sustainable housing that gets fast-tracked and is built of right. So you're not going through an endless hoops of discretionary permits. But our secret sauce in our company is that we take a lot of time up front and we listen, and then we end up delivering a project that is supported by the community and work very closely with the community. But, I think we have a lot of great developers that want to do business in LA, and we're going to need to create a path for them. It's not going to always be perfect. There's always going to be groups that will raise issues, but we've got to have a path to get people to invest in Los Angeles. And the architects, there's probably a number of you that are on this screen that have worked with my company. From the inside, you've seen how we do it, and we have a very successful formula. We just got a project approved in the city of Thousand Oaks unanimously. So we've got a whole pipeline of projects that we're working through right now.
But council people have faced recalls over just coming in to a neighborhood with some temporary shelters. You've said that you want to build 30,000 shelter beds in 300 days. What is it that these city council members have not done right?
Well, I don't know the specifics that you're talking about. The recall that I'm aware of is Mike Bonin, and he was under a recall threat because he was proposing putting homeless encampments on beaches and in city parks. And that's what people reacted to, not building the housing. But listen, we've got 300 surplus sites that have been deemed surplus in the city of Los Angeles. You want to put these locations, the temporary housing that I plan on building, in areas that are not impacting local community, especially single family residents. And there's a lot of these parcels that are in commercial and industrial areas that we can quickly build and start having beds and give a better path of life to the poor people that are living on the streets, which is inhumane the way we're allowing them to live now. So our current leadership and the people that I'm running against has allowed this to occur, that we have 44,000 people living on the streets, and an average of 5 a day die in Skid Row. And that's just, it's incomprehensible and inhumane what we've allowed. So we've got to change our course on that. And
does that mean trying to change the law with regards to tent encampments, which are outlawed in some neighboring cities?
Tent encampments are outlawed throughout the city. The law is not enforced. You're not allowed to build a structure on a sidewalk. It's just not enforced. The leadership has chosen not to enforce those laws. They have open drug dealing in Skid Row. They have drug tents on Skid Row. That law is not enforced either. The drug tents are open 24 hours a day.
So if you become mayor, what would you do on day one about all the encampments?
I would declare a state of emergency take the authority to solve the problem in the mayor's office, build the best and the brightest team. There's a lot of examples around the country and around the world of how to deal with this situation. Apply good business principles in terms of best practices. Hire 500 workers that are trained in mental health care and drug addiction to go out on the streets, so we're having the right services to help these people have a better life. Stop the drugs from being sold and build the beds so we can put people into safe, warm beds with the right services and allow them to live a productive life. I mean, you've got to give people a second chance to living a life, and you have to do it in a humane, compassionate way. But you also have to protect communities that are impacted by, these encampments and the drug dealing on the street, and the businesses that are suffering from having these encampments on the street. So it's a win-win for everybody by cleaning them up and giving them the right services.
So we only have a short time with you, so we better jump on to another topic, much as I'd love to develop some points there. But let's just talk a bit about an issue facing Los Angeles that you haven't said much about, and that's the challenge of climate change. Your rivals they've all presented a plan to combat climate change. You have not. LA's facing drought, it's facing repeated fires. Pollution is a major concern for many citizens. You have enumerated your track record at DWP on solar panels and greening technologies, and you've also talked about your LEED gold rating at Palisades Village. But what more can you add in terms of how you would tackle climate action? And do you believe that that's something you should care about?
Well, I do care about it. So it's not something I believe I should care about. I do care about it. And I've cared about it before it was politically correct to care about it. At DWP, under the charge of Tom Bradley, we were greening up Los Angeles and taking dirty plants out of production and changing fuel sources. We built a plant in Utah that was the cleanest plant at the time, built nuclear Palo Verde in Arizona, the cleanest plant at the time, settled the lawsuit in Inyo County on how we'd redistribute water that was never settled before, that was decades old lawsuit. The vegetation in the valley was dying. It's now flourishing again because of my leadership in settling that lawsuit with Inyo County. So I have a history of doing that. In my company, I think we're the leader in the industry for what we've done. You take a look at Miramar, it's one of the most sustainable hotels in the country. You look at Palisades Village, rated one of the most sustainable areas of development in the country. So I've got the track record of doing it. We also have a plan that's been adopted in the city of Los Angeles that's supposed to be completed by 2035. That's a great plan. We may need to do more, but we got to make sure it happens. So it's easy to have a plan. The question is, who has a track record of getting things done? And I've got a track record of getting things done and caring about it before people had to encourage me to care about it.
So why don't you bring out a bunch of bullet points when journalists ask you about it? Because you're starting to sort of get a reputation for not talking about your climate plan.
Well, I don't think that's the case. Maybe that's the reputation you think I have. But the reputation that I have is making things happen. So we have a plan that has been approved by the city council, that's been adopted by the mayor, that I will inherit. And what I'll make sure we do, and I've been clear on this and on the record, I've been on 2 debates talking about this. It's just not true. I haven't talked about it. I haven't answered a question by the LA Times. I don't think I need to, because I've been clear publicly that we have a plan that's supposed to be completed by 2035, and I will make sure it's completed by 2035. The people I'm running against have never completed a plan in their life. They've never been a chief executive in their life. They've never managed a budget in their life, and they've never signed the front of a check in their life. They've only signed the back of a check. So it's going to be a tall order for them to be able to tackle the issues that this city has, since they have 20 years to do it, and every problem has only gotten worse under their leadership.
So let's take on one piece of making LA a cleaner, greener city, and that's mass transit. So the system's been built out, it is still under construction, but what has been built so far is not working for everybody. The system feels unsafe to a lot of people, it's too slow. Getting to and from stations is unpleasant in many neighborhoods, especially where there's a lack of shade trees or eyes on the street so pedestrians can feel safe. Do you have thoughts on this, and how can you really make mass transit work for LA from a climate perspective and a civic usefulness perspective?
It's a great question, and it's an important matter, and it's something I've been very vocal on for the last 20 years. I do not believe we should be spending tens of billions of dollars putting everybody under the ground in a city that's beautiful and has some of the best weather in the world. We should be adopting what other great cities have done around the world and have a light rail system that's very robust at street level. It's better for sustainability. It's better for traffic flow. It's better experience for ridership. It's a fraction of the cost, can get built much quicker. It supports businesses because you stop along the way. So you take a look at what's going on in Vienna. You take a look at what's happening up in Seattle. There's some great systems out there. But we continue to put people underground where people don't want to be. But it starts with working with communities and going into the local communities and listening, just like any project, to what's important for those communities. And what's happened with MTA is they have been tone deaf and fighting communities to build projects that communities don't want. And that's created a lot of tension that's not needed.
Yeah, but a fair bunch of this track has now been built. I mean, the Expo line, for example, which really is quite slow and has a number of other, I guess, deterrents to people, that is above ground. It's not underground. It does go through neighborhoods. It does have great views. It is really fun if you've got time to spend on it. And what you're talking about is sort of is creating something that hasn't been planned. What do you do with what we do have? How do you make what we do have really work and really entice people? And that does involve the getting from people's homes to the transit stops. It is dark and dangerous late at night. Women don't feel comfortable. What are you going to do about those kind of things to really incentivize people to use the system?
Yeah, well, again, it's a good question. We've got an issue that's happening in Los Angeles that's unfortunate because of the increase in crime, and it's affecting ridership. We've got a sheriff that is saying he's not going to put the sheriffs on the trains. People are scared. That's why you have to go tackle crime. You can't continue to allow crime to get out of control. We made a decision, this leadership made a decision, including people I'm running against, 2 years ago to defund the police. They cut $125 million out of the budget. Now we have 500 officers less on the streets. And all of that is part of the reason why we've got crime. So you're right. We have to have better lighting. We also have to have more security. You have to have more police. And we actually have to build more transit-oriented homes that are right next to the line. So the underground subways that are planned need to be built and need to be operated better. No question about it. It shouldn't be that complicated. It's actually not. The leadership is just not doing a good job in operating it.
And what about something like tree canopy across the city to make streets better shaded and just sort of more walkable? Is that part of the pretty Los Angeles that you talk about?
Absolutely. It's the best thing to do. And it's what I do on all of my projects. We have massive amount of trees in my projects for that very reason. It's not only because of shade, it's because there's a beauty to it. It relaxes and calms people. And so, of course, we want to do more of that. And shame on us for not taking care of the parks and the trees that we have. If you've driven around the city that are not maintained, and it's just wrong, dying around the city.
Well, that gets to a departmental question. It seems, from what I understand, there's a lot of different departments involved in keeping one tree going. How do you dismantle that?
Well, I think that's pretty simple. You put one department in charge of trees. I mean, this is the problem when you've got career politicians running things that have never operated a business. Let me ask all of you, which candidate would you put in charge of running your firm? And if you would put a candidate running your firm, you should go hire that candidate or you should vote for that candidate. If you want more of the same, there's two people left that are running against me that you should vote for. If you want real positive change, then you should vote for me that has a track record of that. But if you've got multiple departments maintaining a tree, that tells you everything you need to know.
We're coming up to 5:30 and we were told by your advanced team that now you have to go. Do you have a few more minutes?
Yeah, let's go 5 more minutes. How about that? I was 5 minutes late, so.
Right, and speaking of your rivals, If Karen Bass wins, would you work for her?
Well, if Karen Bass wins, I'm going to certainly support her. I love this city. I'll support anybody. I've already worked for 3 mayors that are very different people. And so, of course, I would support her and do this. But I do have a day job I'm going to go back to. I'm not looking for a career in politics. I'm looking for the opportunity to go serve my city and then come back to my private life.
So let's talk about your day job, which is developing malls and other properties. So Americana, a brand, Palisades Village, and the Grove, they've all earned you the comparison to I guess Walt Disney, or they've been compared to Disneyland, and that's because of their level of, I guess one can call it, theming, cleanliness, a kind of control of the total experience, from your cute trolleys at Americana brand, your I guess historic revival architecture, and then even the musical backdrop. So as a developer, as someone who loves architecture, what you've created exhibits a tremendous sort of control of the environment in its kind of total experience. LA is not going to allow you to have that sort of control, but what would be your ideal LA? Would it be something like the Grove?
Well, as mayor, I'm not trying to redevelop Los Angeles. As mayor, I'm trying to clean it up. I'm trying to celebrate the great history and the architecture that we already have in Los Angeles. I was down at a project today where a developer went out and redid a group of warehouse buildings that all of you should take a look at if you already haven't. Many of you probably do, and maybe some of you worked on this project called the Beehive down south of downtown. I mean, it blew my mind how fantastic this was, because they saved the architecture and then just brought it back to life and did a change of use and beautiful outdoor space and fountains and trees. And it's called the Beehive. Go take a look at it. You'll be blown away by it. So what I want to do is inspire people to clean up their buildings, save their buildings, enhance their buildings. We have some of the greatest architecture in Los Angeles. That's what makes the city so beautiful, is the diversity and the history of the architecture that we have. But it's dirty, the streets. We've allowed the city to let down ownership. Why would you want to invest when the city is not curing the problems? So listen, I've created great environments. Tens and tens of millions of people every year enjoy our properties. People vote on their feet. They show up at my properties. And by the way, I've never built a mall. I've only built outdoor properties. And so I'm proud of what I built. It's a very different animal. So the mayor's job is a different job, but it takes a skill set that I have.
It's interesting that you just corrected me on what to call your properties, and I did not know you didn't refer to them as malls. But what they certainly are is they're very successful retail spaces. And currently, we are seeing a sort of change that's going on in retail, and some of it's withdrawing from the main streets in some of the LA areas that were extremely successful retail neighborhoods. And yet, at the very same time, we're seeing a lot more of this more mid-rise construction go up on the arterials that has commerce at the bottom, shops at the bottom, and residential above. And in many ways, that's a great direction to go in, except that the retail isn't always being filled. The stores are not always being filled. How do you diagnose that challenge, and what would you do?
Well, I can tell you that my business last year was the best year we ever had in 30 years. And we've got a backlog of retailers that are trying to get into our properties that we can't fulfill because we're 100% leased across our total portfolio and have a waiting list. You have to build the right product. It has to be in the right neighborhood. And you got to make sure it's designed well, which I know all of you will do, and it's marketed properly. But you have empty storefronts throughout the city of Los Angeles, most of which is a result of COVID and this city having rules that were shutting down businesses, restaurants and retailers, when quite frankly, I think should have been able to reopen or operate in a safe way. And 90% of the businesses in Los Angeles are small businesses. People suffered during COVID. They're suffering now. We didn't lose one small business throughout our portfolio because we kept everybody going and got them restarted. Not all landlords did that. Most didn't do that. And we wrote off all the charges and costs. So there's a compassion and a humanity that I'm going to bring to the mayor's office I understand small business. I was one. I understand what it takes to operate and the cost to operate. I also understand how bad government decisions can put people out of business. And I'm going to do my best not to have that happen again.
Yeah, I know COVID affected a lot of businesses, but certainly there were areas in decline. You know, Third Street Promenade, for one, was definitely going into decline before COVID. But point taken. You have to run just one thing. It's a topic that wouldn't normally come up in a conversation like this with architects, but I think it has to, just because of the momentousness of the Supreme Court decision. Roe versus Wade has suddenly entered into the political race because of the release of the Supreme Court possible ruling on overthrowing Roe v. Wade. It has a lot of people very anxious. California is anticipated to become a sanctuary state, I guess, for people from states where Roe v. Wade is outlawed. You're very much a devout Catholic, if I may say that, and yet you've also taken public positions in favor of Roe v. Wade and in favor of supporting any efforts that California makes to remain open. This is definitely impacting women who are looking at what mayoral choice they make, and they do see a woman running. What would you say about that? And again, I'm sorry to bring this up in the context of something about the built environment, but it does have to do with people's sort of, I guess, well-being in the city.
Well, you're right. I am a Catholic, and I'm very proud to be Catholic. And Joe Biden is a Catholic, and Nancy Pelosi is a Catholic, and we all believe in a woman's right to choose. And so that's where I'm at. I believe in a woman's right to choose. And Pope Francis, who I think is a terrific Pope, has made it very clear that, you know, people's personal choices that they make, just like he told Joe Biden he could still take communion, I think was the right thing for Pope Francis to do. And I think what the Archbishop or the Cardinal did in San Francisco and told Nancy Pelosi she's not allowed to have communion is absolutely the wrong thing to do. So my position is very clear. I'm going to support Gavin Newsom's position on this. I've committed $1 million of my own money in order to help get a ballot measure on and get it approved. And I believe that Roe v. Wade is the law of the land and should remain the law of the land.
Well, thank you for making a confirmation on that. Now we have a less onerous confirmation to ask you to make, which is, if you make the runoff, will you come back to the AIA and talk to its members at greater length about your plans for the city?
Of course I will. And I apologize that my schedule got crammed today. And what I've learned on this campaign journey, which I've never been on a campaign journey, is my schedule is not mine. There's a whole bunch of things, and that's not an excuse. It's an apology. So I do apologize for being short. I appreciate the time. And let me just end with this. I have the greatest respect for architects. I can't draw to save my life. And I have had a senior executive with me since I started the company, Dave Williams, who's one of the great architects. And I've had the benefit of building every project with incredibly talented architects that have allowed my dreams to become reality. And for that, I'm eternally grateful to this group of people and this trade that really do allow people's dreams to come true and provide so much joy and fulfillment in communities all over the world. So thank you for your time. And I appreciate the questions and having the opportunity to address you.
Thank you very much, Rick Caruso. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
And you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Francis, and thank you, Mitra, for your time and leadership on this forum. For everyone on the call, we do truly appreciate your willingness to connect with us today and to hear from mayoral candidate Rick Caruso. As you all know, my name is Will Wright, and we will organize more of these forums moving forward, and we look forward to the conversation with you all. So please reach out to us and have a great day, and let's do a round of applause for Francis and for Mitra. Thank you.
You're very
Thank you,
welcome.
Francis.
Great work, Francis.
Francis.
Good work. Good job. Really good job. Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
Thanks, Francis, as
Mitra.
always.
Thanks, Will.
I'm sorry that
Thank
I didn't
you.
share
Thanks,
the
Francis.
stage. Usually it's much better when everybody gets to chime in, but under the time constraints, it just felt that's the way we had to do it today.
You did great.